All right, guys, thanks for your patience. Good to go.
Awesome. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our third annual Shop Talk event hosted by Sheridan Student Union and Sheridan Student Life Radio. Firstly, I'd like to welcome myself and Favor as your co-host this afternoon. We're more than excited to get these important conversations going and be able to give back some educational information surrounding Black lives. Now, let's get into it. We're going to start off with our first guest today, Michelle. So Michelle has overcome unimaginable pain and struggle. Born in the DR of Congo, Michelle grew up amid the terror of the Great African War. Much of his childhood was ravaged by death and decay of a war that claimed the lives of 5.8 million people, including his father, and forced him to be a child soldier. Now, a United Nations Fellow for people of the African descent, Michelle inspires people to believe in their ability to make a difference and leaves audiences with a new perspective on life, a sense of hope through social responsibility, and a desire for change. Please give a warm welcome to Michelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm extremely honored and humbled to be on this platform and to be speaking with so many incredible people here, to be sharing this platform with Kiosha and Akil, and I can't wait to hear about all the things that they have to say. Of course, I came to Canada as a refugee, as a 16-year-old kid. Even though I'm a Congolese by a lot of things, I've grown up most of my life here in Canada, and it's truly been a humbling experience to experience both what it's like being an African and, of course, as a as a black person here in North America, and the pleasure of traveling across the U.S. to different communities. And just learning about, for our forefathers who talked about the Pan-African dream and what that looks like specifically, and the work that's still needed to do that work. So anyways, I think this conversation is incredibly important to have, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I can honestly relate to what you're saying because I'm from Nigeria, so we're both West African. Moving here, I think I was 18, so I honestly could, to an extent, understand what you're saying. Quick. I'm just gonna say this first of all. For someone who's been through a lot, I don't know if anyone has read the book Child Soldier, but you definitely have to read it. For someone who has been through a lot, you sure do have a bright and cheerful smile. My just first question is, how do you smile? And it's such a genuine smile. It warms everyone's heart. I just want to know, what is the power behind that smile? Because the smile is truly powerful. What is the power behind that smile?
Thank you. Honestly, it's been a long journey to get here. That's all I can say. It's been a long journey to get here, but I smile primarily for many different reasons. I smile, one, because I'm here. There are many opportunities. There are many moments in my life where I wouldn't have been. Whether it was when I was 5, when I was abducted as a child soldier, and while we were in the line being given different numbers, my best friend Kevin was behind me. I was given the number 1, he was given the number 2, and it just so happened that the number 2s were the ones who were chosen for a very difficult task that they were asked to do, and if you failed to do that task, you were killed. Like, I could have easily been number 2 and not be the one talking to you today, right? There's so many instances of those things, of moments like that have happened in my life. And so how can I not smile, just to be the fact that I have a life, that I have an opportunity to live. The secondly, I think, is, I was talking to an incredible friend a few years ago, and we summed it up in this statement. Broken relationships make broken people, and I was a broken person. I was a broken child because of everything that had happened to me. But I was so lucky that I had great relationships, whether it was with my father, who was this incredible, bigger than life human being, right? He was about 7 feet, 250 pounds. Please don't ask me why I'm not as tall as my dad. I don't know. So he was this larger than life figure, but not only was he a larger than life figure, he was this incredible storyteller, this incredible human being who, for him, human rights was essential and central to what he believed as his core ethos as a person. And so all these values that he had within him, he left for me as a great example. So I had a great example of a father, a great example of a mother. And even when I came to Canada, having going through high school in Ottawa at St. Pat's, um, a Catholic high school, and while there were so many Africans, I faced so many instances of racism because I had an accent actually when I first arrived, a very thick African, like sort of like African accent, and I was bullied for that. But it was, again, great relationships that I had with teachers and friends all throughout high school that gave me the impact that made me the person that I am today. And so I smile because of that. I smile because I have an opportunity every single day to live and also to create great relationships that will help me move forward in life as a man and as a human being.
You are truly a great inspiration to me personally, and I believe everyone here. I mean, pretty much keep smiling. As long as you still have breath, you can smile for that. So, question: have you returned to the Democratic Republic of Congo since moving here at age 16? And how has the experience been if you have returned?
So I actually just returned back a few months ago. So it was the first time in 22 years that I'd gone back to Congo, and it was a very interesting trip. I went to see. I had a lot of family issues, family matters that I had to take care of, so I had to go back. And I had to meet uncles and aunts that I hadn't seen in 16, 17, some 20 years. All right, and so it was very interesting to really go back to Congo. One of the things that makes a diaspora is we have an imagined idea of a home, right? We all have this like very um, sort of like great image of what home should be like, but then you arrive and then you face the realities of this imagined home that you have, and it's very different than what you'd have. And in many ways, Congo, like other parts of the world, faces its own great challenges, right? It's this very um, wealthy nation with so many minerals, very essential for our electronics because of a mineral called coltan. Yet there's this huge dichotomy in politics in Congo where you have this huge divide of between the rich and poor, and then you add corruption in there, and it creates this dichotomy that's really strange where you're on the roads that have potholes, but you have like a Lamborghini driving by. There's somebody begging for food on the side, and literally a man dropping $200 in the restaurant. Um, and it's this very strange, very weird, but I think exemplary of what the reality that's happening really in our world in many ways. And so Congo to me was incredible because one, the food was amazing. Of course, you're eating all natural food. Honestly, the pineapples taste very different. I don't know why they taste different from here. From the mangoes, and just, I mean, the continent in general is this incredible place. And I think to me, Congo, I'm very biased, but I will say it. Congo for me is the most incredible country on the continent because anything and everything that you ever want to find is in that country. And it's so fitting that it's in the center of Africa. It really is the heart of Africa. And the fact that Congo is not doing well, whether that's politically, socially, or economically, it also is so indicative of why the continent itself is not doing so well. Um, Anyways, and so it was incredible to go back after 22 years of living in Canada and having this idea, this imagined home that I had left so many years ago, right? I left as a refugee when I first left Congo, left my home and everything I'd ever known, and I came to Canada. Of course, I first lived in Uganda as a refugee, and then eventually came to Canada. But then I went back. This time, I didn't go back to my home because, for political reasons, I can't go back to the east of Congo. But I went to the west of Congo, to Kinshasa, for the first time in my life. And Kinshasa, the capital, is extremely different from the eastern side of Congo, where I come from. Just culturally, of course, very diverse, very different language, food, etc. But as a young Congolese man who speaks about my country, who's so passionate about my country on many different levels, I think it was such an eye-opening experience to really go back and to see things, how they work on the ground, the challenges, the struggles, the opportunities, all of that. I think was amazing.
Honestly, I could resonate with a lot of what you're saying because, like I said before, coming from Nigeria, um, you can have on one street you have families who are struggling to pay their rent, and on the same street you can have a billionaire who just has a big mansion on that street, and he only uses it what 3, 4 times a year if he feels like it, and it's like there's no middle class. It's either you're rich or you're poor. There's nothing in between. Talking about the food in Congo, is this has been a national debate going on for years. As a West African, I know you can relate to this. This is the question: Nigerian jollof or Ghana jollof? This is a debate. I need your opinion on this. Nigerian jollof or Ghana jollof?
I will say the Senegalese will probably have something to say, considering the love comes from Senegal. But before before I'm killed by the Nigerians and Ghanaians, I will say, having a lot of Nigerian friends, of course. You know, I've had Nigerian jollof, and I would have to say I think Nigerians have perfected jollof rice. I think you know Ghanaians will kill me. I have Ghanaian friends that will be happy about it, but I have to be honest. I think Nigerians have perfected jollof rice, even though it has its roots in Senegal.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I am fully satisfied. You have given me the answer I have wanted for years. Well, still moving on. I know you probably would have heard this so many times, but at the same time, I still want to hear it. You have been through a lot. So, what has been your source of strength? I know you've mentioned your dad a lot. Your dad and your mom being a source of strength, but what else has been a source of strength to you, and what do you think has been the secret behind your success?
I think all of us in life, I think, get inspiration from many different places. For me, again, my life has been represented by community. So for me, I would say one is about community, and that starts with my father, as I said, and relationships that I've created over the years. Um, you know, despite what we are in, and all of us being stuck in our homes, humans are social beings, and we can't do anything without each other. It's truly we're nothing without each other, and so I hold on to the communities and the people that and the networks that I create every single day. They're a source of inspiration, you know, uh, for my life as a human rights activist, a children's rights activist specifically. I look, of course, to a lot of young African leaders. I'll talk about historically Patrice Lumumba from Congo, of course. Somebody who at the age of 30 was able to fight uh, a Belgian European power without a military and was able to somehow get independence for Congo. And for me to be a Congolese today is power to the fact that he was able to have enough courage and the vision to see his country free without the violence of colonialism. So he's a great inspiration for me for that. The second one for me is a very personal one. It's music. I love music. I've gone through like periods of time where I've really fallen in love with hip hop, fell out of love with hip hop, you know, went back to my Congolese roots, fell in love with Congolese music, and then at some point was like, okay, Afro beats came about, and so we're all about the Afro beats now, So, but in all of it, I would say since I was a child, I play African drums, the West African drum. I've been playing since I was a child. My father used to play guitar. I used to play drums with him. So music has been a huge part of my life in many ways. And whenever I have the opportunity, even though when Rob Ford became was our mayor here, we used to have a drum circle in Toronto in some of the parks, and they banned some of the drum circles, which was really sad because it was just a amazing opportunity for people to just meet and to play drums. But there's a store near Kensington Market called Seku's drum store, I believe. I think that's what it's called. And anyways, he holds like drum lessons, and usually for people who are incredible drum players, you can play with him. Anyway, so I've been able to play with him sometimes, especially during Afrofest. Uh, so music was a huge, as has and continues to be a huge inspiration for me, and being able to to do what I do in my life. Most of the job that I do is very demanding emotionally, and I'm sure for many people, whether it's Akil, whether Kiosha as well, all the work that you do that is about advocacy or fighting for something is very taxing emotionally. And sometimes you need to take a step back. Sometimes you need to step on your own to just recuperate. And for me, that has always been music and writing.
Yeah, you do have like things that inspire you and keep you going. And I know for sure you do love Afrobeat. You have to love Afrobeat. It's you don't even have a choice in this one. Um, Last question before I give the mic back to Lex. In an interview, you did talk about going to the States for a program which was organized by Oprah. So, would you like to shed more light on what the program was about and like how did you benefit from that said program?
Yeah, so actually, that very good question because that in 2007, there's actually a very good, interesting story about this how I even ended up in that work. So around 2007, I was graduating high school, and when I came to Canada in 2004. I came on one of the coldest days of my entire life. It was January 21st, 2004. Imagine an African man coming from Congo. I had never seen snow in my life. I'd never experienced cold. The coldest I'd experienced was 12 degrees. They put me on the plane, and of course, we're going to Canada for the very first time. We're about to land, and the pilot comes on, and the pilot goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ottawa International Airport. The weather outside is minus 42 degrees Celsius." Minus 42 degrees Celsius. I had never seen anything or heard anything in my entire life, but I experienced minus 42 weather. And of course, I arrived in Canada as a refugee, 16 years old, with my mom. And the for me at that time, the only idea I'd ever had of North America were from stories that my cousin had told me, of course, about this place. From the man being named Michael Jordan being paid $30 million to throw a ball in the basket, to people going to a park in south of the U.S. where people pay money to see mice running around with big ears. Of course, they're talking about Mickey Mouse. I didn't know at that time, but there's so many misconceptions that I had about North America. And then I arrived here, and I had to work 3 jobs in high school. Because when you come to Canada as a refugee, you don't come for free. There's a huge misconception of this program as people come for free. No, if you come through the government-sponsored program as a refugee, you have to pay the money back. My mom couldn't work, and my little sister couldn't work, so I worked 3 jobs in high school every day until I graduated. So my marks really suffered a lot. I struggled a lot in high school trying to boost my marks up to get me into university. And of course, I knew that my mom was going to be upset that, one, I didn't tell her that I was struggling in school, and then two, that I didn't make it to university, right? Because every African mother and parent wants their kid to be an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer. Of course, that's you say anything outside of that, there's trouble in the house. And so I had this huge fear of my mother, not just out of fear, but also out of respect. I'd seen everything that my mom had gone through, that my family had gone through, and I felt this huge responsibility, one, to protect her health. And so I worked the 3 jobs because I wanted to protect her mental health and to pay back the money that brought us here. And then two, I also wanted to also see my own future and where I'd go. Anyway, so in between all of that, I went to my high school, some of my teachers, and I told them the issues that I was having, why I was struggling in school, that I really wanted to get into university. And so they said that I needed to take a year off of school to actually boost my marks and get into university. And I didn't want to tell my mom the truth, so I lied. So I lied my way to my mom, and then got at that great opportunity. At that time, I got a great opportunity to meet a few people who worked with an NGO, and I got an opportunity connected with them. They were starting a program that was connected to Oprah, and so Oprah's Angel Network, which is her charity wing, had given this NGO money to start a program to go into inner city schools across the states, for after school programs. So we would do like a keynote speech, and then we do workshops, like leadership workshops on how to approach your member of Congress, etc., and other workshops like that. Anyway, so I did that for about a year, and I went to very interesting places. And this is again when I was saying how, I've got this opportunity to really see when we talk about Pan Africanism and literally what that looks like, the work that needs to be done to realize all that dream. I realized one of the biggest issues was that there's this huge misconception, especially within the Black community in the U.S. But even here in the U.S., but sometimes here in Canada as well, but mostly in the U.S., there's a huge misconception of who is an African, what does Africa look like, and then from the African side, there's these huge misconceptions about who are Black Americans, what they're like, what issues face them. Right, there's a huge sort of divide in that, and I saw most of that, especially when I traveled to places like Compton and went to Detroit. And in Compton, I arrived at a school where, in the old Western movies, when there's like tumbleweed rolling around in the streets and everything's boarded up. In Compton, around 1 p.m. So this is around 2007. We went to this school in Compton. It was a high school, and it was a very notorious high school. It was about 2,000 students. There's a lot of gang activity in that school. They hadn't had people come in and speak in about 40 years. So we were given this huge profile of what the school was like. And at 1 p.m., usually everything closes because it's right after lunch and all the businesses close up. They're boarded up with chains. And instead of tumbleweed, there's garbage rolling around in the street. So automatically, first of all, I'm terrified because you've heard, of course, of rap songs and people talk about Compton. And again, being an African, I had these huge misconceptions of what Compton is like. I don't know what was going to meet me there. And as we're sort of like driving up to the school, we find there's a car, there's a Mercedes Benz on the street, and we parked. We were like, well, if they're gonna rob our car, at least they'll rob the Mercedes Benz first instead of ours. Again, all these huge misconceptions that you go into your mind. And then we go into the school, and there's a police officer, and there's literally the security was like the security as you get into the airport. It was similar to that, right? So you have the metal detectors at the entrance of the gate, and then there's a second metal detector. And so we go through the metal detectors, and of course we were hauling with the microphones and screens, etc., because the school didn't have any equipment. And we get into the school, and you have all these students, 2,000 students, all being streamed into this auditorium, and we're all going to speak. And right, my heart is racing at that time. I mean, I've been a speaker at that time for about a few months, so I still wasn't comfortable with public speaking. I was still sort of getting my sort of my confidence up for that. And my heart is beating. First of all, you see all these students that are divided by colors, where you have students wearing blue, red, and then in the middle you have some just kind of wearing neutral colors. The teacher who had invited us was like panicking. She was looking at us, and anyways, we start our presentation, and I will always start off by playing my African drum, and we play a song, and then talk about the issues that we were going to talk about. At the end of the presentation, this group of guys come up to me, and one of them is wearing a red bandana, and then the other group is wearing a blue bandana. So I automatically knew about Bloods and Crips, and they both approached me at the same time. And one of the kid on the other side comes up to me and looks at me, and he says, I had never heard anyone talk about Africa in the way that you talked about. And first of all, I didn't even know that there was such a thing as child soldiers. And he's like, I can't believe you forgave the people who did what they did to you, because my brother was killed in a drug shootout here in my community, in my town. And the reason why I joined the gang was because we never got justice for his death. And so I thought that I would get revenge for him. But hearing your story today really changed my mind and my thoughts on what that means. Anyways, that was one of the most powerful experiences I ever experienced in my life at that time. And then being able to connect my own story and my own struggle to the struggle of this young man, or this young person who was going through so much in his own life, in his personal life. So this is just some anecdotes of what happened on that trip. It of course opened up a lot of things for me as a young African man, and opened a lot of doors into thinking about my role and being able to realize the Pan-African dream, not only for the betterment of the continent of Africa, but for Black people everywhere.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. never, never would I have imagined that. I do appreciate you for coming here and telling the story. Commend your strength. I'm just gonna pass it back to Lex.
I just have to say, the last line in your profile makes so much sense. Leaves audiences with a new perspective on life and a sense of hope through social responsibility. Literally everything you just said, like, hit that completely. And I just want to say thank you for coming here and sharing your stories, and just giving like a sense of no matter what you go through, there's always a brighter side to it. And I think that is a great way to live mentally. And I just, yeah, thank you. That was awesome.
Thanks, Lex.
Okay, so we're gonna change gears here a little bit, and we're gonna move into our next guest. So Akil Mckenzie is the CEO of a media production company, Falling Motion. He runs a team of 50 talented people that work on commercials, music videos, films, and even weddings. Akil is a director, a producer, a cinematographer, an editor, a public speaker, and a poetic artist. As a creative, Akil is always looking for new art forms to express his thoughts and emotions. So a warm welcome to Akil. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. What's up? What's poppin'? Hey.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go right off the bat. You have been nicknamed the next Tyler Perry. What do you have to say about that?
Who said this?
What do you have to say about that?
I I would not say I'm nearly as funny as Tyler Perry, and I don't think I could produce content as comedic as Tyler Perry. Um, but I do hope and plan to one day be able to be amongst the greats with him and be able to produce content that is remembered, because I definitely think my one of my largest life goals, like outside of being happy, of course, that should be first, is to leave a legacy like after I'm gone. And whether that's either in people's hearts and that I was able to talk to, like how Michelle is able to do within a single 20 minutes, like I'm a changed man already. It was incredible just hearing that talk that he had at that high school was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Or if I'm able to create a piece of work that can become something that institutions use as an example of this is how you do whatever it is, whether it's a specific shot that's done or story writing itself. Would definitely like to be able to live on in that way.
No one mentioned you were this humble. So when did you discover your art slash talent? Now this question is a really vague question because you are a jack of all trades, master at all. But like, when did your love for art and your talent and creativity, when did it all begin? What triggered it? Was it something? Did you just wake up one morning like, that's what I'm gonna do?
I feel like each one kind of hit off in a different way. Like I would say filmmaking, what that came into my mind when I was pretty young. I was just like I enjoyed watching like a lot of movies, and for some reason it was Charlie's Angels that made me decide I want to actually go and make movies. Like I was sitting down, I was watching Charlie's Angels, and some stuff started exploding, and then Lucy Liu looked so cool, and I was like, I could make this scene. I can do this. That's how it came for film. Poetry, I feel, came out of me wanting to find a way to make people want to listen to something I had to say. Because there's a lot of times, like let's say growing up, just as a child, if you want to like communicate with your parents, and depending on what the situation is, and what they have going on in their lives. They don't necessarily want to listen, especially if you're a kid. Like, you could be just talking about pancakes and they're like, I have to worry about bills right now, boy. Like, why are you talking to me about pancakes? But I was like, if I make a poem about pancakes, right? Like, if I can say the pancakes in a very special way, now all of a sudden they want to hear about that conversation that I had about pancakes. You know, that's how poetry came along. And then rap was by accident. Like, there was in high school, it's also like connected with poetry, right? But in high school there was the table where all the black kids would sit at, and it was called Cafrica. And I remember I would like go up to the table, and like everyone would just be sitting down, and then once in a while, all of a sudden, like a beat thing would start, and I was like, "Hey!" And then that was my first introduction to like actual like freestyling, in which like you're just making it up on the spot. And I'm gonna tell you, I was trash. It was so trash. I was there, and I was just trying to just rhyme words. I was like, so hot, fresh out the pots. It was disgusting. But eventually, over time, it stuck a little more. But yeah, that's it. All of those things. But if you take it in, though, they were all like very specific moments in which now I'm like, oh, now I'm going to do a lot of this. Now I'm going to do a lot of this. But it's only within the last 2 months, because it's been a new switch, like an idea that I've made for myself for 2021, that I want to be able to embrace all of my art forms, because I found I would really push a lot of the others to the side in order to focus on film. Because when being an entrepreneur and trying to build a business and having like people and stuff, you're always growing up with the mentality of, if you're black, you have to work 200% more than anyone else all the time. You always need to be focused. You need to make sure that you're drilling in this one thing, because you're not going to get your goal if you slack at all. And I took that as in, I wouldn't be able to achieve anything of myself unless I put 100% into film. That's the only way I could succeed in film. But there was a moment in which I was like, I don't think it's film that I want to succeed in. It's creativity that I want to succeed in. Like, I want to be a filmmaker, but I also want to be a poet. But then at the same time, I also like to make music. And I realized that I wanted to push myself as like an all-encompassing. And then all of a sudden, that like list on my bio got longer, because I wasn't just a filmmaker anymore.
That's just wisdom coming. I just gotta try to soak it all in. Okay, so still talking about your business and being a young entrepreneur, what was the birth story for Fall in Motion?
Ooh. When I was first year of high school, maybe, or like the year before that, I was talking to my best friend, Justin, and I was like, bro, like, one day I'm gonna make this company, and then it's gonna be like universal, and it's gonna be so cool. I'm gonna sit in my office, and then someone's gonna be like, Akil, you have a meeting, and I'll say, I don't feel like it, you know. And I was thinking about like what I want to name this company, and I was like, okay, so the way film reels work is it's like gravity that pulls it down. Like, gravity is the motion that never stops, and it's always just, I'm like, and that's how a film reel moves. It's always in a falling motion. And I said this to him, and he told me to not do it. It's a terrible idea. That's such a garbage name for a company. And then once I finished college, I sat down and I was really just figuring out how to like push in order to make money, in order to make things work, because I found my grades struggled a lot in my last year of college, because I started thinking I'm in school in order to get work, right? And then when work started coming in, I didn't want to push aside work in order to focus on school, because the reason I'm focusing on school is to do work, right? And in that moment, by the time I finished college, I was like, okay, I have all of the pieces I need. I just need to implement it. And I sat down and I was like, dude, do I do it? No. And I thought of other different names that I can use, and I couldn't think of anything else, because I was like, the whole point of doing this is to accomplish the dreams I had when I was a child. So why would I change the name to suit something that I think would work better? Because this is the dream that I wanted. And I'm like, yo, forget this man's, yo, I'm gonna do it anyway. And then I did it, and I called it Falling Motion. It was definitely difficult to get it off the ground, because you're walking into an industry that's filled with so many people and so many options and so many people that say, I'll just do it on my iPhone. And you're there without necessarily having a long list of examples. So it was quite easy to just get kind of shunned and pushed to the back. But we here.
It looks like you've had that dream to be a great, successful man ever since you were a kid, and irrespective of what your friends said, irrespective of what's happened, the older you got, everything just kind of like fell into place as long as you put your mind to it. And honestly, if anyone has not seen this man's work, bruv, you can see the hard work, the dedication, the energy, the love, the spirit he puts out in his work. And like, he's fueling Canada events in this now, right? He's everywhere. I saw it on TV and I'm like, yeah, I know that guy. Okay, so
Thank you very much.
No problem. As a young entrepreneur, you are gonna face a lot of obstacles, a lot of problems, a lot of trials. So what has been your biggest obstacle so far? And we do believe you overcame it. So how did you overcome that said obstacle?
I missed a word. We do believe.
Oh, we do believe you overcame that said obstacle.
Say word.
So how did you overcome it?
I feel like the largest obstacle for me was actually finding remember how I said, like, I have made new changes to my life in the last 2 months. I think that was probably my biggest obstacle as a creative and as an entrepreneur thus far, because I did have that dream as a child, and then growing up it became skewed into this way of living my life that would 100% make sure that I succeeded, but then I don't think that I was going to die a happy man. Because it's good to push and it's good to strive and it's good to succeed, but I found myself pushing away loved ones, pushing away things that I enjoy, and only focusing just on the work at hand. And then COVID hit. And when COVID came, there was no work. And it was easy for me to push all of these things aside, because when you're in it, you're in it, you know what I'm saying? But then COVID came, and when there was no work and I sat down, it was between June and July where there was nothing. Like in the before and after that, there's still been things, but that's when there was nothing. And I would just kind of like seize up a lot, and I was just in my head, and then I would just break down, because I was like, I realized my entirety of self-worth came from how much work I was doing, or how much I was putting in, or if I thought I did enough to make people be like, oh, he's a hard worker, you know? And then if I'm not doing that, what am I? And in that moment is when I was like, oh, I play guitar, I guess I could do that. And I was like, oh, this is fun. And then I was like, oh, I feel a little weird. Maybe I can write about it. And I was like, that's right, I write. And it was that moment that was probably the biggest overcoming of January 1st, 2021, being like, Akil, you are more than the work you're producing. And by you accepting that, you can produce better work. And that was probably a big thing. But I would say, as outside of the thought process, like as a piece of work that was probably the hardest for me to do and to overcome, I would say would be the last project I just worked on, which was Historians, because it came from a very dark place, right? It was about right after the death of George Floyd. I had written the piece, and it was a tribute to him, and that was the original point of the piece. I finished that. I performed that in my car just with the video, and I didn't want to make like a big video or anything out of it because I didn't want it to seem like I didn't want to solicit off of the death of Black lives. Like I didn't want to capitalize on that. I feel like there are a lot of artists who do that. Who's like, hey, look at this terrible thing that happened, and now I'm going to write a song about it or something, and I'm going to make money, and I'm not going to like give it to the people that it was about, things like that and such. And eventually, after I had done it, it had grabbed some traction, and Fabio, he's a business partner of mine that I work with. He runs Hollowed Grounds. He reached out to me and he was like, we should make something with this. And at first I was like, nah. And then there were other people who climbed on board, other artists who wanted to do that too. And they were like, we should do something with this, but not because we want to make art, but because we want to find out how we can use our art forms to help push the message that you want to portray. And in that moment is when I was like, okay. And we filmed it. There were a bunch of artists that came together and it was really great. But in the editing process, there was so much pressure because it didn't feel like it was a job, but it didn't feel like it was a passion project. It felt like it was something that had to be done, but it was something that had to be done right. And there were so many moments where I was editing this, where I was like, if like the father or the mother of someone that we're mentioning in this or that we're talking about was to see this, is this product doing them justice? Like, is this something that properly portrays the thoughts that these people are having? And it was very stressful to create artwork that's not necessarily for yourself, but on behalf of others. And I'm pretty sure, Michelle, you might feel this way too, when you feel like you are speaking on behalf of other people. There's so much more of a stress to it that it's not like this isn't just about me anymore. Like what I do is going to impact whether or not these people are helped. And that in itself, stress. But it did work out positively, because since then it was able to get on CBC The National. We were able to get a whole bunch of colleges and universities and high schools on board, both to push the idea of the movement and the initiative that was created, as well as teach it in schools. And we have kids right now in Brazil and Uganda that are using the initiative and the film to learn how to dance through choreography, and then also about social movements that are being pushed into North America before they come over. And it was just very fulfilling to see that even when art can come from a very dark place, it can also provide light, and that was probably the biggest, like, oh, because it's not only until like a couple days ago where the stress finally started to come off my shoulders, but this was done and made like 4 months ago.
Honestly, watching the video, all this wouldn't come to mind because it looked like something that was done properly. It looked like the message was on point. The video was on point. There were a lot of arts in it. So you had people dancing, photographs, the background music, everything was just perfectly blended. It was just a chef's delight. if I would say. And it was last question before I pass it on to Lex. Um, like I said, you are a jack of all trades, a master of all. Um, Pretty much you kind of have answered this, but not specifically. But how have you been able to handle? You've been a director for 5 years, cinematographer for 7, and you've been an editor for 10. Not even going to mention your rap career and you being a poet. So how has it been? You know, being all these. How have you handled doing all this, juggling a lot of things? I know you're a creative guy, and you put out anything throughout any creative outlet. But how have you been able to handle all this?
I would say the first thing I do is I don't call it a rap career, because then it gets super serious for myself, and I'm like, oh man. But definitely, I think I do what I feel like doing when it feels like it should be a thing. Trying to find time for everything when it's creative or creativity based can be very difficult if you're scheduling it, because that's not how inspiration works, right? Like, you can't just sit down and be like, right now I'm gonna write a song, and all of a sudden it just comes out. Like, you'll be in the shower or something, and then you're like, and you're like, oh, that's a track. And then once you get out of the shower, you have to write it then. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's very much finding those moments and those key times where inspiration hits to just let it out. And a lot of the times, for some reason, it'll be while I'm on the bench press that a fire track line will come to my head, and I have to put the weight down, pick up my phone, and spit it real quick. And I know I look like a psycho just in the gym, just like this. But yeah, being able to do multiple things, I feel like it only really works if you just let it, you know?
I see that. You should write a book on being an entertainer or being an artist, putting out content through various creative content. Thank you. So I have got so much knowledge. I feel like Einstein, if I will be honest. Um, I will pass it back to Lex right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Fave. I just wanted to say to Akil, I get where you're coming from the whole, like, being so good at so many different creative things that you don't really know where to aim and like what is going to be your best avenue. I definitely feel that too, as like someone who danced for 19 years and now is getting into like singing and painting and like all those different things. It's really hard to like solidify, all right, what do I actually see myself doing in the future? What's actually going to give me like happiness and joy and all that stuff? So I definitely feel you in that path too. It's very hard to figure out where you're going.
You kill it at all those things though, eh? Like
Oh,
on Instagram, like, yo, hitting a move and then like hitting a song. I'm like, what can't she do?
I feel like a really common theme throughout this whole conversation about creative outlets, like giving us so much, no matter what industry you're in or like where you're going in life. Music, art, dance, like all those things truly let you be who you are and like truly express yourself. And for me, it's like being able to connect with music. I find that I am a representation of what that singer or songwriter was doing. So I like that kind of creative connection. So it was really nice to hear, especially from you two right now and getting into Kyosha, about how you feel about your own creative outlets. It's really nice to hear that. So thank you for all your feedback, guys. All right, so moving last but not least, our lovely Kyosha Love. Kyosha is a multidisciplinary artist, activist, and educator that intersects arts and wellness and empower women and promote positive health and mental wellness in the BIPOC communities. And we have a little quote here from Kyosha. Ultimately, I want to see women who have lived within the margins win Everything I do is for them, for us. I want women to look like me, to know that it's okay to be loud. It's okay to take up space and take care of yourself first. I want to redefine health and wellness for Black communities. So many of our stories go unheard, and my mission is to amplify those voices through my art and through my words. So a really warm welcome to Kyosha, everyone.
Thank you, Lex. Thank you so much to everyone having me. It's such a wonderful pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here in general. I know a lot of us are very excited to hear you speak. Danny has hyped you up in our meetings for sure. So I just want to go out there and ask a question right away. I just wanted to know who has been your inspirations through your many art forms? Like, is there one inspiration for like a dance art form or art, or is it like one giant inspiration? How would you describe that?
I think I find inspiration in a lot of different people, but specifically Black women. Growing up, I was surrounded just by Black women in my household, but also in my communities, in school. I was in a Black-dominated high school and middle school, but also outside of like my surroundings and who was around me, I was really inspired by like Black poets and writers who like really encouraged me to use my voice through my writing. I was particularly inspired by Maya Angelou and her book, Letters to My Daughters, one of my favorite books ever, which is like a collection of like poetry, essays, and like memoir. And I thought that book was really impactful. And just reading other Black writers and poets has always given me space to feel like I could do the same, to express myself and write, specifically within poetry, through memoirs, through narrative writing. And I think those have been my inspirations.
Awesome. So what would you say your main artistic outlet would be that helps you feel like yourself and that you're able to express what you are feeling?
I would say writing, because writing is an umbrella for so many different outlets. Like writing has inspired me to like go on the stage as a spoken word artist, and spoken word has been something that I really love. Writing has gotten me to film and screenwriting and like taking my writing into like visual spaces, which has been wonderful as well. So I think writing is like the overarching umbrella of what has kind of given me a platform. And I use my writing in different ways to kind of use my voice and speak the things that I'm going through or the things that I would like to express or share.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely very important to be able to communicate those feelings to other people, especially if you find a creative outlet like writing and poetry. Those are definitely some very important and specific things that definitely hit your heart. So that's awesome. So kind of steering away from like the creative aspect, I want to bring up Black hair, and I wanted to ask you a very important question. Why do you feel like embracing your hair as a Black woman is important? And do you think that it ties in with your identity as well?
I think definitely embracing my Black hair and wearing my Black hair is a part of my identity, just because of the history of what Black hair means. And like, there's so much pain and struggles, you know, within our hair and the kind of complexities of what hair used to mean for us, specifically as Black women who like don't feel comfortable or feel like they're professional enough wearing their natural hair. If you have curly hairs, if you have kinky hair, I think there's always this kind of, there was always this kind of understanding that our hair wasn't really acceptable or neat or proper. So I think it's really important to kind of reclaim that and kind of like unlearn that. And I think wearing your natural hair is an act of resistance. I don't think it's a mandatory thing that all Black women have to do. I think it's very personal. And I think whether you're natural or not, hair is just such a powerful tool to express yourself. Hair is such a great way to feel good about yourself. But also we don't need hair, right? We also don't need, there's a lot of Black women who decided to be bald, and that's an act of resistance as well. So I think it's really a matter of how you choose to express yourself. So I think hair is important to me, and I know it's important to our history, but it's really up to you and other Black women how they choose to wear their hair and what kind of messages they want to send with their hair.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. For me, when I was younger doing dance competitions, I was constantly told to straighten my hair because having curly hair, it looked messy and out of control. Even at work, I was always told to tie my hair back. So I definitely think that is a way bigger conversation that everyone needs to have, including men too, because it drives both forces. So I agree with you on that 100%. So moving into your activism a little bit here, I just wanted to know what a healthy, positive health and wellness looks like to you. Like, what does that represent? Like, what in your daily life makes you feel like you have a positive and healthy wellness and health outlook?
Yeah, I think going to the first half of the question, I think wellness looks different for everybody, and is something that everybody should like have. I think there's like this idea that wellness is for a specific kind of person, or wellness is only needed when you're going through something challenging. But wellness should just be a part of your daily routines and your daily spaces. And how it looks like for me is a lot of different things. I think two big things that are part of my wellness is like advocacy and expression. Growing up, like I really felt like I had to be quieter on certain things that I felt or certain things that I went through. And now as I'm growing up and like reparenting myself, I realized that a big part of my wellness and feeling good is making sure that I use my voice when I'm not feeling good, and expressing myself through mediums, expressing myself with friends, with support systems, with family. That is a huge part of my wellness. And I know when we talk about self-care, it could usually look like materialistic things, which are okay too, because I love to like take a bubble bath. I love to have face masks. I love the whole candles. I love all of that. I think my wellness is like making space for both, like being able to like do my hair, do my nails and feel good, but also sure I'm making space for like doing that like soul searching, doing that inner work, being able to communicate to folks that I'm like, that I care about and love, being able to set proper boundaries. I think making space for both is a really great way for me to have a really healthy space and a healthy mind.
Exactly. A healthy balance. I think everyone kind of needs that in their life too, right? To stay a little bit sane, at least with everything that the world throws at you. So I agree. Yeah. So what would you say your biggest obstacle is out of everything in your career and everything that you've dabbled in? What are some of the bigger obstacles that you've had to face, and have you overcome them at all?
That's a good question. I think my biggest obstacle, but biggest accomplishment is who I am, my identity. Being a Black woman, that just naturally comes with its own obstacles, but it's also the biggest thing that I'm proud of. And I think through being a Black woman and navigating different spaces, there's been, implicit biases, there's been barriers, and I don't think there's just one in specific. I think it's a just an overlay of like all these different like microaggressions, different interactions. Like those are things that have just always existed and have always been there. But on the other side, there's also been a lot of victories, a lot of successes, and a lot of like powerful moments. And still there will be a lot of powerful moments simply for existing and being who I am. So I would say like who I am as a Black woman, my identity could be my biggest obstacle, but it's also my biggest accomplishment.
I definitely think it's your biggest accomplishment, just so you know. You seem so confident, and like you have such a powerful presence that I don't think you should ever second guess yourself, even if you are a Black woman. You're amazing, and everything that you're saying is amazing. And hey, Black girl magic, right?
Sure. I think the biggest thing that this is something I talk a lot to young Black girls, is that like it's not about seeing yourself as an obstacle, but understanding the systemic obstacles that are like present. Because for sure, like I definitely don't see myself as one. And I think it's really important to affirm myself of that and remind myself of my value and my worth. And for other Black women and Black men as well, to remind themselves of their worth and their value, and to like make space between the two. Like you could be seen as an obstacle and a barrier systemically, but it doesn't mean you actually are internally. So I think those are like really big differences to like be mindful of, and to speak about, because there's a lot of moving pieces of how we view ourselves, but they don't have to identify with how others view us.
I agree. Yeah, I do agree with that for sure. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch upon? Any new work coming out that you wanted to talk about, or anything that you have coming out or you're interested in doing?
Yeah, I think I can, share something. I haven't really told anyone this, so I guess this will be a cool thing to share live. But I do have a series coming out. I think that's all I should say. I do have a series coming out with a pretty cool network, and I'm really excited to share it. And it will be talking about the things that we're talking about today around like Black identity, vulnerability, mental health, wellness, queerness, just like a whole pack of different things. And I'm really excited about that. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, we're definitely, look, everyone's like, we're staying tuned, we're ready. You'll definitely have to send us an email once that comes out. We're all gonna watch that for sure.
I will do. Thank you so much, Dex.
Thank you so much, Kiosha. It was really nice talking to you and meeting you. I'm gonna pass it over to Favor just to close us all out for this amazing event that we had today.
First of all, I'm gonna start.
Favor,
Yeah.
before you go,
Yes.
I had a question and I wanted to ask everyone. Actually, I was writing down some things. So, I'm not a musician. I have a terrible voice. So one, I can't rap like Akil.
Akil got bars though.
Akil's got bars. You know, and although I'd like to say that I take good care of myself, I don't think I'm quite as acutely aware of my well-being and health all the time as Kiosha. So I think there's a lot to learn from that. And I've lived here in Toronto I've lived here since I was 7. I came here when I was 19 years old. And there's something that always sort of like is a question that's always in my mind as a Canadian now, as somebody who does work with people who are creatives, who work in industries that are very creative. There's a question that's been in the back of my mind, and it goes across, I think, not just creatives, but just across industries. Whether you guys feel like, as Canadians, do you feel like there's any supported as creatives in your industry? Is that something that you feel like Canada supports you, or just your community, or are we? And I'm just going to choose one example. I think in just the realm of music, for example, I feel like even in the hip hop community here in Toronto, there's like these huge stark divisions where, you know, once you make it, everybody hates you. Like it's kind of cool to hate you because you've succeeded in certain things. Um, have you does anybody recognize what I'm saying? Like, is that something that you feel as creatives, some of the challenges that sometimes, like, if you've pushed a boundary where either people don't agree with you within your own community, like there's pushback that comes with that?
I'll take this first so we don't all talk at the same time. I don't know so much about like the music side of things, but I can definitely say that there is a stigma there as well. But for dance, there's definitely, like, I would say yes and no. Like, there is still a lot of backlash, especially if you're a Black woman and you're entering into like a disciplinary like ballet. You mainly see thin white people, like ladies dancing, right? So it's actually a lot harder for Black women to get dance jobs because they're always looking for something so specific to the image in their head. I find that, like, personally, I don't feel like I personally get a lot of support doing what I do. But then again, you will come across those people in the industry that are going through the same thing as you and have found those loopholes and ways to push those stigmas and like barriers and have put themselves into the industry. So I find that for me, I do have to work a little bit harder to put myself into the position that I want to be in. Not saying that's the case for everyone, but that's just my personal experience with that. But then again, it has made me be the person that I am today and has given me the personality that I have now, because I always fight for what I want and I will always go for what I want, whether it be like an audition or a music video or whatever. So it's like a healthy balance of yes and no.
Did anybody want to say something concerning that, Akil?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
I would say, well, first thing I would say is Canada, or Toronto at least, definitely is really good for its support in multicultural artwork in general. Like, there is a lot of opportunities for colored people to be able to get their work seen, like if you want to apply to certain things. However, I would say that companies and organizations do make it a little difficult for people of color when you are their niche. In terms of I went to high school for acting, right? And then I had gone and I was going looking for like acting agents and stuff. And I remember going into an agency and the man was like, "All right, so whether I take you on right now, you gotta really blow my mind here." And I'm like, "Okay, I just gotta be better than everyone else. All right, I can do this." And then he was like, "Cause I'll be honest, it's just you and this other guy." And he shows me this picture, and it's just this other black guy. And he's like, "And I need one on the roster, to like fit. So that way when people are like, hey, we need someone who fits between 5'10" to 6 foot, which one I am, I won't tell you. And they need to be black, curly haired, and a certain body type. And I only need one of those. So like I would be pushing him or you towards it. So you got to beat out this other guy. Let's see what you got." And that was real sucky. And then jobs in which, let's say you get a job working on a set or for something because it's Black History Month, and now this company's like, we need to include Black people on this. Or it's like, this is something that's supposed to be for this product, and now after there was the large increase of BLM being a trend at the end of 2020. There were certain jobs that were going out to people in which it was like, okay, we're going to make 60% of the crew Black or something like that, or BIPOC in general. So that way we're hitting those numbers. And then once the heat's off, we can go back to the regular crew and we actually aren't going to bring these people back on. That, like, being the niche, I would say is the most difficult part when there are companies that do that.
For me, I would say, first of all, coming from Nigeria, I used to put out a lot of content, be it comic relief, music, a lot of things. I just did different things at different stages of my life. And then coming to Toronto, one of the first problems I had was I thought, me being an African, people weren't gonna understand my art, understand my content, understand where I was coming from. But then I met a fellow Nigerian, Femi Lawson. He's been an inspiration to me since I was like 12, and got the opportunity to talk to him, and he just made me realize that Toronto is a place that is culturally diversified, and you would always meet people who, as long as you have the talent, are ready to put you on and give you the opportunity, as long as they see the hard work in it. But I feel like it gets to a certain stage where it's like, okay, this is where you're gonna get to. How you pass that stage is left to you, pretty much. Because I know a bunch of people who have made it in their community, but like it's just like they can't get out of their community. I don't know what it is that's holding them, but like just a few make it out. They have the talent, but it's like I feel probably they don't have the right team, the right push, the right company. I don't know what it is, but I just feel there's something that just holds you at a certain level, and it's like, all right, how you get out of this is a mystery.
Really great question. Wow. Really great bro. Really great question, Michelle. Oh my gosh.
It's all good. Kiosha, did you have anything that you want to add to the question before we close out today?
And I was going to add for Kiosha as well. Like, how do you, like, especially in a niche, where like health, right? Like mental health, like just wellness in general. How are you able to like juggle all these different creative sides of yourself, and I'm sure you have so many other like passions and pushes. Like, what is it that centralizes you? And then the challenge, like I said, of being, because I don't know, I find like in Toronto there comes as Favor just said, there comes this like ceiling where it feels like there's a ceiling in the city that you reach, and then it's like, anyways, do you even think about that at all? So
Yeah, I think those are wonderful questions, and I'll keep it brief. I think, well, one, a part of my wellness is my art. Creativity is a part of wellness, and that's something I often teach. Creative wellness is a beautiful thing and is the most accessible thing. The thing with mental health and wellness that there's a lot of taboo and inaccessibility to being able to take care of yourself, whether it's therapy or getting the supports or being able to afford going to a studio to work out, being able to pay for a yoga class. These are all expensive things. You might be able to afford it, but if you don't, there's always been this ancestral and generational tool that we've always used, and that has always been art, that has always been storytelling. It is free 99, and that is a part of our wellness. However, because that can also be your profession or your career, even your thing that makes you happy and is your therapy can also be exhausting. So I think for me, it's been finding a good balance of when I need to take away from the art and prioritize the artist, because the artist is the most important first. So how I do that balance is like taking breaks from work, taking breaks from writing and producing and putting out work. It's okay to like put the pen and paper down. It's okay to like say no to certain opportunities and, you know, rejuvenate and focus on yourself. And that can look like just binging, watching your favorite show, or like buying your favorite food, or taking a rest. So I think finding the balance between engaging in my creative practice that also keeps me well, and then when it's overworking me or getting me exhausted, finding other mediums or just other at-home practices that can just like distract me and keep me grounded there as well, which can be reading, which can be watching TV, which can be like just talking to a friend, going for a walk. I think just having a balance of all those things are how I've been staying well. And then lastly, I do feel supported in the creative community in Toronto. I feel like, again, this goes back to the initial question around Black identity. Black identity is so complex, and you will receive a lot of implicit bias and microaggressions and just awful experiences for being Black. However, the community you cultivate is really up to you. So despite those systemic barriers, I feel supported because I've been able to cultivate a really healthy community that I love, and I'm really just lucky to have. So I do feel supported in that space. And I think it's because it takes work to build a community and to foster healthy connections. And I encourage all of you to do the same.
Thank you so much. Wow. This has been an amazing shop talk. I wish we could have like a part 2 to this, because just a lot of wisdom coming from all angles. Like, damn, I'm blessed. This has been amazing. Thank you to everyone who has been here. Michelle, Akil Mckenzie, Kill Love. Thank you, everyone. Lex, you're amazing. Thank you for doing this. Big shout out to everybody, Sheridan Live Radio, my amazing team, the SSU, Danny. Yes, we'll wrap it up. Thank you very much for everyone watching. This has been amazing. We love you all, and we cannot wait to do this again. And I cannot wait to work with you guys again. Awesome. So this has been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it a lot. To anyone watching, follow Falling Motion and go watch Historians.
Yes, go follow them on all of their social medias. You can find their names on the SSU events page. All of these amazing panelists today have incredible work on their main pages, on their social media. So make sure you follow them, follow what they're doing next. And yeah, thank you guys again once more for coming out and doing this shop talk with us. Hopefully next year, I probably won't be here, sad drops, but hopefully next year you guys will get to come back and do this again and keep sharing these important conversations and keep giving that education back to those who need it and want it, of course.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna close it out.
No problem. Stay blessed, everybody.
Bye, everyone.